You know, if you look pretty much anywhere online right now, or in any kind of business media, you are just constantly being hit over the head with this one massive assumption.
Oh, yeah, constantly.
Right. Like, we are all being told that the absolute only way to survive the future of work for you as an individual is to master AI.
hmm That's the prevailing narrative.
Exactly. There's this almost culturally ingrained panic, honestly. Like, if you don't learn prompt engineering right this very second, or if you don't go take some massive boot camp on generative models, you are just going to be completely left behind.
Yeah, left in the dust.
Right. But what if blindly learning AI tools, what if that actually makes you significantly worse at your job than someone who was using absolutely no AI at all?
Which is, I mean, that sounds completely counterintuitive to literally everything we're hearing right now.
It really does.
It challenges the entire foundation of this, multi-billion-dollar consumer AI training market, because that whole industry is entirely built on this promise that just having access to the tool is the ultimate equalizer.
Right. The idea that the software itself just gives you the intelligence.
Exactly. But, well, the evidence says otherwise.
Which is exactly why our mission for this deep dive today is to explore a truly fascinating piece of empirical evidence that basically flips that entire industry on its head.
It really does.
So for you listening, we were digging into a May 1st, 2026 Fortune article. And this article details a major field experiment. And we should clarify, this wasn't just some small lab test with a dozen people.
No, not at all. This was conducted by heavy hitters. We're talking researchers from Harvard Business School, Stanford University, and the Stanford Digital Economy Lab.
Yeah, massive credibility there. And alongside that study, we're also going to examine how one specific company, EO&AI Ventures, claims to have the exact architectural sequence to break through what you're calling the GenAI Wall.
The disruption to the established narrative here, I mean, it really cannot be overstated.
No, it can't.
Because for the last few years, the whole ecosystem has essentially sold us on this idea of, learn AI to do literally anything. But this research strongly suggests that teaching artificial intelligence without a highly specific structural foundation.
It's basically a recipe for failure.
Exactly. It's actively harmful.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand why the entire AI training industry might actually be operating backward, we first have to look at the hard data, the actual mechanisms of this Harvard and Stanford experiment.
Right. Let's look at the setup.
So, the researchers went into a UK fintech company called IG, and they set up this field test to see exactly how different types of workers performed on a really specific marketing and web analysis task when they were given generative AI.
And to do this, they divided everyone into 3 distinct groups, right?
Yes, 3 groups. And the categorization of these groups is what completely cracks this whole phenomenon wide open.
Absolutely. So let's break them down. The first group was what they called the insiders. So these were IG's native web analysts.
Basically, the people who already do this exact job.
Right. They do this specific marketing work day in and day out. So they served as the baseline for the experiment. Then you had the second group, which they called the adjacent outsiders.
Okay, adjacent meaning they were somewhat close to the field.
Yeah, exactly. They were marketing specialists who understood the broad strokes of the industry. So, they shared the general domain knowledge, the vocabulary of the insiders, but they didn't actually do this highly specific, granular web analysis task normally.
Got it.
And the researchers gave this second group AI tools to help them out.
And the results for that second group were just phenomenal. I mean, with the AI tools layered on top of their general marketing knowledge, those adjacent outsiders performed brilliantly.
Yeah, their output was completely indistinguishable from the insiders who literally do the job natively.
Wow. And the researchers called this the pass-through condition, right? Meaning the AI basically allowed them to pass through the barrier of their specific inexperience and perform like veterans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the AI effectively bridged the gap in their specific task knowledge, and it worked purely because they already possessed the foundational domain expertise.
Right. They already knew what the final product was supposed to look like. They had the taste for it.
Precisely. They knew what good marketing looked like, but the narrative completely inverts when we look at the third group.
Oh, man, the third group.
Yeah, the distant outsiders. So these participants were data scientists and software developers.
Okay, so highly tech-savvy people.
Extremely tech-savvy, incredibly proficient with complex AI tools, but they had absolutely zero background or knowledge in marketing.
Which genuinely blew my mind when I read it. Because if you were following the standard logic of the current tech boom, like the logic we were all sold.
You'd assume they'd win.
Right. You would totally assume the technical data scientists, the people who actually understand how large language models work under the hood, you'd think they would absolutely crush it when given the AI.
It seems like a given.
But the study showed they were actually worse than the baseline group that used zero AI. Like, I literally had to pause and read that section of the source material twice.
It's staggering, isn't it? Because the assumption is always that technical fluency translates to operational success. But the experiment proves that generation is not the same thing as evaluation.
Well, that's a great way to put it.
We really have to look at the mechanism of how these distant outsiders actually failed here. Because the Fortune article detailed how these developers used the AI to systematically degrade the marketing output.
Because they approached it like engineers, right?
Exactly. Because they had an engineering mindset, they basically just asked the AI to optimize or, summarize the text for efficiency.
Right. They were stripping out all the vital SEO copy. They were removing all the persuasive marketing language and entirely deleting the calls to action.
Because to an engineer, that stuff looks like fluff.
Exactly. The AI did exactly what it was told. It made the text incredibly concise and logically structured. But in the context of an actual marketing product, it was totally useless.
It's a disaster for the business.
It's like giving a top-tier spelling and grammar checker to someone who doesn't speak a single word of French. Like, sure, the software will flawlessly execute the syntax, but if the human doesn't know what the French sentence is actually supposed to convey, they'll just end up shipping perfectly spelled gibberish.
That analogy perfectly isolates the core bottleneck here, the spell checker, or in this case, the AI.
It can't supply the intent.
Right. It cannot supply the intent or the standard of quality. It only executes what you ask. And this leads us to the core conclusion of the researchers. This GenAI Wall that we're talking about, it isn't about having access to intelligence or knowing how to write a super clever prompt.
No, not at all.
It is entirely about the human's capacity to evaluate that intelligence. If you don't possess the foundational domain knowledge...
Like if you don't know what a successful marketing campaign actually looks like in your vertical.
Exactly.
Right.
Or a legal brief or a supply chain audit. If you don't know what good looks like, you cannot tell a good AI output from a bad one. And when you lack that evaluating filter, the AI simply compounds your errors at scale and speed.
Right. It just helps you fail faster.
Exactly.
So if domain knowledge is the absolute non-negotiable gatekeeper for whether or not AI is actually useful to you, I mean, that spells disaster for how the market is currently teaching AI, doesn't it?
Oh, it's a massive problem.
Because here's where it gets really interesting. Think about the biggest names dominating the education space right now. We're looking at Coursera's AI tracks, Udemy boot camps, McKinsey Academy, and all these massive enterprise training courses rolled out by the foundation model labs themselves.
Yeah, the big players.
This Harvard and Stanford experiment points a massive spotlight at all of them, basically suggesting they are selling a fundamentally flawed promise.
The structural indictment becomes glaringly obvious when you look at what those platforms are actually shipping. All of these major competitors in the consumer AI training market, they are exclusively selling what the experiment categorizes as stage 2 skills.
Meaning just the AI part.
Right. They teach prompt engineering, model literacy, agent operations. They are packaging this idea that you can just learn AI in a vacuum, completely detached from any specific industry vertical, and then magically apply it to anything.
Now, I want to make sure we don't mischaracterize the source material here for you listening. The Fortune article and the research, they aren't claiming that a Coursera bootcamp or a McKinsey Academy course is poorly made, right?
Yeah.
Or that the instructors don't know what they're talking about. They aren't saying the pedagogy of how to write a prompt is factually incorrect.
Right. The issue isn't the quality of the instruction. It's the architecture of the curriculum itself.
The sequence.
Yes. They are literally mass-producing the exact configuration that the Harvard and Stanford experiment proved is the failure case.
By taking a user, teaching them high AI proficiency, and giving them no anchored domain expertise.
Exactly. They are churning out millions of distant outsiders. They are sending people out into the workforce perfectly equipped to hit the GenAI wall and actively degrade their own output.
Which means the competitive market is failing because there is absolutely no domain layer beneath their training. It's a fundamental structural problem with their product architecture.
And it's now thoroughly documented and verified by researchers from 2 of the most cited business schools in the world.
So, okay, if teaching AI in isolation just turns you into a highly efficient hazard to your own company, what is the right sequence? Like, who is actually teaching this correctly?
Well, this is where Eon AI Ventures enters the picture.
Right. And their solution to this was built long before the Harvard and Stanford experiment was ever even published, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is a truly striking case of empirical academic research independently validating an existing commercial product architecture. Because EON-N's program maps directly onto that exact pass-through condition the IG experiment discovered.
Okay, but before we break down their exact method, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Because whenever I see a company claim they have the exact silver bullet for a brand new academic finding, my alarm bells immediately go off. Like, you're telling me a company just coincidentally built the exact learning architecture that a 2026 Stanford study proved is the only way forward.
It does sound a little too perfect.
It sounds incredibly convenient, almost like a retrofitted marketing pitch, just to capitalize on a headline. How do we know this isn't just Eon slapping their brand on a new study to, raise their Series A?
It is a totally necessary skepticism, and honestly, it requires looking at Eon's actual operational history to verify.
Okay, let's look at it.
So Eon AI Ventures is the intellectual property and commercial vehicle for Eon Reality. And Eon Reality is a 25-year-old XR and AI learning platform.
Oh, wow. So they've been around for a quarter of a century.
Exactly. They didn't just spin up overnight to chase a trend. They operate across over 80 countries. They have more than 4,400 institutional partners, and they boast over 136 million platform downloads.
Okay, that's massive scale.
And crucially, they spent the last 2 decades painstakingly building out their foundational domain libraries. Long before generative AI was even a mainstream conversation, their architecture wasn't a reaction to the study. The study just provided the academic vocabulary for why Eon's long-standing approach actually works.
Okay, well, that context definitely helps ground this.
Yeah.
So EON calls their solution a two-stage architecture. And the sequence here is the entire point.
Yes, the sequence is everything.
Stage 1 is what they call the foundational domain. This is the moat. So through their global virtual campus, EON offers 9,000 vertical domain courses.
9,000, that's incredible coverage.
Right. We are talking about hyper-specific, deep knowledge across sectors. Stuff like electric vehicles, healthcare administration, sustainable agriculture, logistics, finance, manufacturing.
And the participants' very first job is to acquire that domain knowledge.
Exactly. They have to build the human taste required to actually evaluate AI output in a specific vertical.
And this is the critical divergence from the rest of the market right here. Absolutely no other consumer AI training program is shipping this foundational layer.
No, they all skip straight to the AI.
Exactly. But Eon insists you absolutely must build the evaluating filter first, and only then do you move to stage 2, which is AI fluency.
So stage 2 is layered directly on top of that specific domain you just learned. And Eon 1 structures this stage 2 as a 100-course curriculum that's built kind of like a 3-level pyramid.
Right. Let's walk through the levels.
So level 1 is the consigliere. For you listening, think of this as using the AI as an incredibly smart advisor or like a sounding board.
Right. You are still doing the heavy lifting, but the AI is reviewing your ideas against its vast database. It's advising you.
Exactly. Then level 2 moves into agents, or single-agent operations.
And to decode that term real quick, an agent isn't just a basic chatbot that answers a question.
Right, it's more autonomous.
Yeah, an agent is an AI that you give a broader goal to, and it autonomously executes a series of tasks, searches the web, and uses tools to achieve that goal. You are basically learning how to manage automation.
Wow. And then finally, level 3 is the product builder. This is where the user actually deploys a live, functional AI product specific to their domain.
And the math that EL1 uses to describe this whole 2-stage sequence is really catchy. They say 1 + 1 = 10.
Which, looking at the Harvard and Stanford experiment results, that math actually tracks perfectly.
It does, because if you take these stages out of order, the formula just shatters. Like if you only do stage 1, you spend months becoming a deep domain expert, but you have 0 AI leverage.
Right. You are knowledgeable, but you are painfully slow compared to the modern market.
Yeah.
You are basically just the baseline insider from the IG experiment.
Exactly. Conversely, if you only do stage 2,
which is the path Udemy and Coursera are selling.
Right. If you only do stage 2, you become the distant outsider. You get this incredibly powerful tool, but you don't know how to aim it. You become the failure case who actually degrades the work.
But when you sequence them correctly, when you do stage 1 to build the domain taste, followed immediately by stage 2 to get the AI leverage, it creates that exact adjacent outsider with AI condition.
Yes, it perfectly matches the group in the fintech experiment that performed at the absolute highest level.
1 + 1 = 10.
Exactly. You arrive at the AI deployment phase already possessing the taste that makes the AI usable in the first place.
Okay, so we understand the theory, right? We see the architecture and the empirical validation. But so what does this all mean? How does this specific sequence actually save careers in the real world right now?
That's the million-dollar question.
For the listener out there trying to navigate this chaotic job market where roles are shifting literally daily, how does this blueprint actually apply?
Well, the source outlines two very different but incredibly common entry points that EON targets with this exact two-stage architecture.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first persona is the graduate. So think about someone who just finished an engineering or finance or some technical degree at a university.
Right.
They actually already have stage one completed. The university just spent 4 years giving them the foundational domain knowledge and the taste.
Right. They know their field. But the friction for the graduate is that they cannot pass the modern AI hiring filter, can they?
No, they can't, because suddenly every entry-level job out there expects applicants to already have deployed AI experience.
It's a catch-22.
Totally. So for this persona, they don't need to take EON's 9,000 foundational courses. They jump straight into the 90-day Stage 2 AI fluency curriculum.
They just layer it directly on top of their existing university degree.
Exactly. They progress through the consigliere and agent levels and hit level 3, where they actually build a live product on the EON marketplace.
And that completely changes the dynamic of a job hunt.
Oh, fundamentally. Instead of just handing over a traditional paper resume and, hoping for the best, they walk into the interview with deployed proof of their capability.
Right. They can pull up a live AI agent they built that solves a specific problem in their domain.
Yes. They skip the resume pile entirely because they are offering immediate, verifiable leverage to the employer.
That offers a massive tactical advantage for new entrants. But the other side of the spectrum is perhaps even more urgent, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
The source calls this second use case the displaced professional. And this is the listener who has been working for a decade, maybe as a translator, a technical writer, or, a mid-tier data analyst. And suddenly they find their specific skills being actively consumed by the current AI cycle.
Yeah, their jobs are vanishing. And for those people, simply learning prompt engineering to do their current job slightly faster.
It isn't going to save them.
No, because the demand for the field itself is shrinking. They don't just need AI, they need an entirely new moat.
Therefore, they absolutely must start at stage 1. They use EON's global virtual campus to acquire a completely new domain. Let's say advanced manufacturing or renewable energy infrastructure.
Right, a safe field.
Exactly. They spend the time acquiring the taste for a sector that is highly resistant to automation. And once they have that new foundation, then they layer stage 2 AI fluency on top.
And the result is a total career pivot. They successfully transition into an adjacent outsider in a completely new, safe vertical.
They basically gain operational capability in a lucrative field by using AI to bridge the gap of their inexperience. It's brilliant.
It really is. But this raises an important question, right, about the validity of these claims and the relationship here.
Oh, right, the transparency of all this. Because again, the alignment is so clean that it almost feels orchestrated.
Exactly. But EON is incredibly transparent in the source material about their relationship with the researchers.
Yeah, they explicitly state that they have absolutely no endorsement from Harvard Business School, Stanford University, the Stanford Digital Economy Lab, IG, or the authors of the Fortune article.
They haven't even been in contact with the researchers who ran the field experiment.
Wow. And Dan Lajerskar, the founder and chairman of EON Reality and EON AI Ventures, he makes a really definitive statement in the text about this.
Yeah, I love this quote. He says, "That is not a marketing claim, that is a finding."
Right. The complementarity between the study and the product is entirely structural. It's not transactional. EON is just citing the finding because the academic rigor of the experiment publicly validates the pedagogy they have literally been building for decades.
And the implications for anyone buying or selling consumer AI training right now are just decisive. The dominant assumption in the market is fundamentally broken.
It requires a massive perspective shift, especially for you listening to this right now. If you're feeling that crushing pressure to adapt to the AI revolution, the ultimate takeaway from this deep dive is do not panic.
Take a breath.
Exactly. And more importantly, do not just blindly rush out to buy a generic prompt engineering course without having a foundation first.
It's not going to help you.
No. To survive and actually thrive in this transition, Your most valuable asset isn't knowing the exact syntax to talk to a chatbot. Your most valuable asset is your foundational domain expertise.
It is your capacity to evaluate. It is your taste.
Yes, your taste is the absolute only thing that allows you to evaluate, correct, and truly harness the power of generative models without just scaling up their hallucinations and errors.
Without just building a faster fail engine.
Right. By the way, the source mentions you can actually explore how this specific two-stage sequence works for yourself over at ohwow.ai Founder. It's an entirely self-paced look at the architecture. But honestly, regardless of where or how you learn it, the empirical lesson from Harvard, Stanford, and EON is just undeniable.
Build the domain first. Layer the AI fluency on top.
Build the taste.
It fundamentally changes the calculus for future-proofing a career. But, this raises a deeper, perhaps more unsettling question, and it's something I'd love for you to mull over after we wrap up here.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Because EON's model, backed by this massive field experiment, clearly proves that human domain expertise, that elusive human taste, is the critical bottleneck for AI today. It is the GenAI wall that protects us, right?
Right. Our human judgment is the moat.
Exactly. But as we look at the frontier models currently in development, AI systems are increasingly being trained to evaluate their own outputs against expert benchmarks. They are actively being trained to self-correct and essentially develop synthetic taste.
Oh, wow.
So the question we really have to ask ourselves looking forward is, will that human taste layer remain an impenetrable moat that guarantees our value in the workforce? Or is the GenAI wall just a temporary speed bump on the inevitable road to full automation?
Man. Now that is a thought to keep you up at night. Until next time, keep digging.